Okay, hey guys, Vaughn Skow here. Another one of these videos from my workbench. Okay, we're going to talk about an amp that found its way into my shop, and that is this B52 AT100, all tube 100. And in fact, it does have 4 6L6 power tubes for about 100 watts, GZ34 rectifier tube, or you can run it on solid state rectification. And it's chock full of 12AX7s for a whole bunch of gain stages for a whole bunch of distortion, if that's your kind of thing. Okay, first thing I got to say, it came into my shop because the contour switch and the treble switch, idiot had broken them off. Okay, nothing wrong with the amp, so so I'm not going to trash it. And I'll also say this: I've been a tech now for like 30 plus years. And this is a piece of cake to work on. It was a piece of cake to get that PCB out, mount a couple of new pots on there. Okay, it is a PCB board amp, but hey, in this price range, they all are. And honestly, the way this is laid out and the way the PCBs look, as far as I'm concerned, not only is it on par, it's probably a little above par, especially with the price point. Okay, so yeah, so don't let anybody tell you these things are a pain in the ass to work on or anything like that. They're not. They're a piece of cake. Tell you what. Also, for about 20 years now, I've taught audio at the college level, and I'm going to start this out with a little bit of an audio lesson, like the first 5 minutes that you would get if you were to sit in my class. And the reason why is there's a lot of basically EQ controls on this amp. They're laid out a little bit goofy, right? And a lot of reviews out there, people will say something to the extent of, well, actually, I've heard people say that the controls are crap other than what they really are. And I've heard people say things like, it sounds terrible because it's got too much mid-range, or it sounds terrible because it doesn't have enough mid-range, or something like that. I hate that word mid-range. It's like, come on, dude, put a number on it, okay? Mid-range. That's like saying it's somewhere between the east and the west coast of the United States. Now, figure out where I am. Okay. So here, I am going to draw for you, right now, before your very eyes, a box. And this box will contain every single sound that you have ever heard or will ever hear. Cool? Okay, you ready for me? There's your box. Every single sound you have ever heard or ever will. Okay? Now, the bottom is the frequencies. The lowest frequencies that humans can hear is about 20 hertz, on up to the highest frequencies humans can hear, on average about 20,000 hertz, unless of course you've damaged your hearing from standing next to big beasts like this too long. Okay? Now, what do you think would be right about smack dab in the middle? Okay? It's not a linear scale. If it was a linear scale, between 20 and 20,000 would be, right at about 10,000, right? But it's a logarithmic scale. Right smack dab in the middle is beautiful 1K, baby. That is the heart of mid-range, okay? That is the heart of honk, okay? Now, the quietest sounds, this is our vertical scale, the quietest sounds we can hear are in theory about 0 decibels. And the loudest sounds we can hear before our ears start to be damaged is about 120 decibels. Okay, so this is our dynamic range. Again, some of you standing in front of beasts like this have heard stuff a lot louder than 120 decibels, which is why you can no longer hear stuff like 20,000 hertz. Okay, so here's the deal. The stuff below about, let's say, 150 hertz or so, most everybody calls this stuff bass. Okay? Yeah? The stuff above about, 7,000 hertz or so, most everybody calls this stuff treble. So that leaves this huge amount of the spectrum that people refer to as mid-range. Okay? Now here's the deal. Down here in the, let's say, 200 hertz land is a very boxy kind of mid-range, right? By the time we get up here into, let's say, 800 hertz, right, which is right about here, We're getting into a mid-range that is more straight smack dab down the middle. It's not a biting, piercing sound, but it's also not a woofy, boxy sound. Cool? Okay. Now, by the time we get up to the land where we're at, let's say 2K or 2 kilohertz, now our mid-range is a bitey type of mid-range. It's a harsh mid-range. And by the time we get up here to, let's say, 4 or 5K, right, now our mid-range is in fact very, very, very harsh and bitey. Okay? Most guitar speakers actually do have a hump here around 2K or so. It gives them a little bit of an extra bite. Okay? And then they fall down pretty sharply afterwards, and they're pretty much out of the picture by the time we get up to about 7 to maybe 8 or even 10K, right? And then they're a little flat and maybe have some bumpy bumps here and fall off pretty quick once you get below a couple hundred hertz. Okay? But here's the deal. When I'm going to refer to mid-range, I'm not going to say mid-range. I will give you a number, because mid-range in this like 800 to 1K land, that's megaphone mid-range, right? Mid-range down here in this 2, 3, 400 hertz flange, that's kind of like this, right? That's warm and fuzzy mid-range, okay? Mid-range up around 2K, that's kind of a bright, honky, piercing mid-range. And mid-range all the way up around 5K, now we're starting to talk about a harsh mid-range. That's basically the top end of electric guitar's root notes. There you go. Okay, I'm putting the pen away. Let's fire this puppy up, shall we? So, using a little HSS Strat, by the way, and the humbucker splits into single coil. They're my pickups, my Vaughn's custom personal set, okay? So that we can do all the sounds. Let's start out with clean, shall we? Okay, that is with on the clean channel. Well, I tell you what. Let's go through these controls. By the way, reverb is pretty self-explanatory. It works on both channels. We don't have any reverb right here, right now, because it's out of its case and the reverb tank isn't connected. Low res, basically that's how much very low end stuff below about 100 hertz do you want in your overall output. At low volumes, like what I'm playing right now, living room volumes, I just crank that sucker up. If you were really maxed out through a 412 cab with that cranked up, you would be like puffing your speaker. You would be blowing speaker cones out in shreds, okay? So basically, when this is all the way down, you are cutting a lot of like 100, 120 hertz and below. When it's all the way up, you're boosting that very bottom end of the spectrum. Pretty simple. Master volume for everything. The clean channel just has volume, treble, middle, bass, and a bright switch. Let's talk about that. Okay, the treble control is focused at about 2K, right? Right about a nice upper spot. Right now I've got the treble a little bit past midway. I've got the bass middle straight up and down, and the bass is pretty much maxed. The mid on this control, by the way, is somewhere in the neighborhood of about 1 to 1.5K, so it's a little bit higher than most mid-range controls. And the bass is down in the like 200 and below range, about on par. Okay? So here's the thing you need to know about the clean channel. And that, by the way, is between the neck and middle pickup. If I go down between the bridge and the middle pickup for like... There we go. Oh, by the way, here in my shop, it's real noisy. Got fluorescent lights all over the place and all that kind of stuff. Sorry about that. We'll also mention that the bright switch on this is a really aggressive bright cap. It adds a lot of highs and it shifts the treble position up to in the like 5 to 7K range, okay? So when you engage the bright switch, you get a lot more bright. Right? Here's without it. And with it. Big time bright switch. Way bigger than anything Leo Fender ever did. So if you are running the bright switch and you pull the treble down quite a bit, then what you're going to get is more of the top end. The 5K and above stuff, right? Whereas if you take the bright switch off and boost the treble, what you're going to get is more of the top piercing end, the like 2K, 3K. Cool? So I actually do like to have the bright switch on with the treble rolled back pretty good. So we've still got a nice sparkle up above, say 4 or 5K, but we're not biting too bad at, say, 2K. Here's neck pickup. That's good clean tone, baby. Okay, I'm gonna go single coil on the bridge with this clean tone and do a little country stuff. Ain't nothing to be upset about there. So now, let's go over to our dirty channel, right? Dirty channel has gain 1 and gain 2. The two stages are basically the same thing, but you can voice them really different with this contour control. Let's talk about this. So we have an input gain 1 and input gain 2 with a master for 1 and 2. So that's really like two separate channels, but they do share the tone stack. Here's the cool thing. We got bass, middle, treble. Same as this tone stack. However, this middle control is moved down to where it's more in the range of 800 Hertz. Okay? Treble control on this is in that more high, like 5K range. Okay? Really voices it just a little bit different and is very appropriate for high gain sounds. Here's the deal. The contour switch, which you can actually have be on only gain 1 or 2, right? Or both of them, whichever you prefer. Now here's the deal. Basically what this does is it sucks mid-range out. When the control is all the way up, it is doing nothing. When the control is all the way back, it is sucking a big heaping helping of mid-range out. Where it sucks, I put the scope on it, and it seems to be sucking mid-range out mostly from about 700 Hertz up to about 1.5K. It's a big swath of mid-range, and it tends a little bit more towards lower mid-range. So you've got all of the lows still there, you've got all the highs still there, but you got the mid-range sucked out for that, quote, scooped metal tone. Cool? So right now I'm through gain 1, and I do not have the contour switch on gain 1. I've got the gain up about 3/4 of the way, and what you get is... classic Marshall JTM 45 tone. As a matter of fact, if you boost the mid-range a little bit here, which is, again, boosting right around 800 Hertz, right? gain, again, sorry, it's noisy in the shop. That is gain 1, actually gain 1 is just a little bit past halfway. And bass is maxed. The bass controls, as is the case with all these passive controls, is pretty flimsy, but I'm giving her all she's got. We're at low volume through a single 12-inch speaker. It's a WGS Liberator, by the way, that I've built into my workbench here. In semi-closed back. It's a third open back cabinet. And treble is just about straight up and down. Okay, so now let's go to channel 2, and I've got the contour on channel 2, and I have it sucked all the way back. Okay? So again, we go from... That's fun stuff, man. And yeah, it's hissing like a son of a gun, but heck, I got that's the gain at about 3/4, not quite maxed out, and the contour is pulled back all the way. Now check this out when I do this. Okay, are you ready? Sorry about that noise, man. I'm gonna roll the contour for you. You ready? Now check this out. With the contour cranked all the way up, watch what happens when I take it off, when I just hit the little button to say, okay, don't be on. Can't hear any difference, can you? Okay? You get what the contour does now? When it's all the way up, it's allowing all the mid-range to come through. Okay? When you pull it back, it is cutting mid-range, okay? And it's a big swap of mid-range from all the way down in the like 400 or 500 hertz range up to, you know, probably right around 1.2K, give or take. Okay? So, you know, there you have it. And for what it's worth, treble control is awesome. You can really... Okay, so there you go. I just kind of wanted to run you through that again because I've seen a lot of people talking about these amps and they'll say that they suck because they don't have enough mid-range. Other people say they suck because they got too much mid-range. And a lot of people don't know what the heck the contour switch really does. A lot of people don't know what this low-res switch really does. Now hopefully you do. Contour switch, as you pull it back, it sucks away more and more of the mid-range, starting down in the lower mid-range of, you know, again, say for instance, 700-800 hertz, all the way up to about 1.2K. So it's sucking a big swath of mid-range away, leaving you with the thumping lows and the screaming highs. Okay? And that is as you pull it back. And what the low res does, when it's straight up and down, basically speaking, it's kind of leaving the low end alone. When you start pulling it back, it's starting to cut away on the super low frequencies, the stuff below about 120 hertz. When you start boosting it up, it is starting to add some of that super low frequencies. Okay? So, again, if you're playing at a quiet volume and a little speaker, you might want to just crank that mama to get all the bottom ends you can. Big cabinet, you might want to start rolling that back to, you know, just stop your speakers from basically going... Cool? Are we all done here? I think we're done here.